Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Wow. Okay, cool. Hi. How is it going? I finally got my streaming setup kind of working, I think. As far as I can tell. Let me pull this over to my main screen. Oh, it's a bit bright as well. Okay. So, this should now be live streaming. I spent nearly the whole of this morning, this mic's so not quite set up, trying to work out how to get OBS to stream and work properly, and it's an absolute nightmare in terms of just organising everything and getting everything set up. Anyway, hi, my name is Matt. This is my new YouTube channel and my new attempt at streaming and trying to post regularly to kind of show people kind of a bit of what I do, and also just a general excuse for me to kind of work on some of my side projects and kind of talk along with that and provide hopefully some value to people who have the time to kind of watch this, and yeah, that's kind of the main plan. So for this afternoon, I don't think it'll be a long stream, just because I spent so much time this morning fiddling with streaming rates, and I found out a key thing about YouTube, that when you schedule an event, you have to specifically get the OBS key to stream to that event. Anyway, it's not important, any of that stuff. So, my plan for today's stream, if I get I'll start with just general, let me get that out of the way. General updates. This is my stream. I am the only person watching my own stream, which I expect it will be the case for the first couple of videos at least, before kind of this one wasn't scheduled properly, so I'm not expecting them to show up. One of the things I've added to my YouTube banner is this idea. I was going to do a Trello board, but this seemed to work slightly better. If it loads. Internet has also been a problem this morning, and I've been trying to reduce my stream quality to get it to a point where I can stream on the internet we have. I'm hitting about 2,500 kilobytes at the moment per second, which I think is alright, and hopefully the stream will be 270p, I think. Anyway, this is a really cool little website / project I found. It's made by the same people who make a website called exist.io. I think they're based out of Melbourne. And well, one of their products is something called Exist.io, which is like kind of a data tracking tool to kind of aggregate all the data you collect on all of your different platforms and provide insights. For example, what days you work out best, or like ways to change and adapt yourself. But one of the other products they made in the making this Exist product is something called ChangeMap. And what it is, it's basically a tool for teams to aggregate and show kind of basically aggregate feature requests. And I've kind of slightly readapted it to make a tool for basically stream requests. And I've already put in 3 things which I think could be a really interesting, 3 interesting ideas for videos or streams. And depending on how well the streams go, I might begin editing and making them more kind of actual kind of edited videos, or I might keep trying streams. I haven't really worked out what's kind of viable yet, and especially I'll kind of see from this very first one being my very first opening test stream, to kind of see what's possible. But 3 of the other projects which I've kind of put in there, I think the only thing you need to do is put in your email to be able to vote, and make an account for that. So that's the only downside. Is I wanted it to be ideally you could just click a button and it would just vote. You wouldn't have to even log in, but this is so far the best solution I found. If you have a better idea, then please let me know. So today, what I've kind of scheduled to do is work on my CoreML app, but other projects which I've kind of got on my mind, I might not do the same one consecutively per stream. I might hop between them a bit. The first one is something called a crazy fly, which I don't think I have. Should I put my webcam on actually? Hang on. Yeah, I don't think I have it easily to hand. It's really cool if I can find it. I think it's down here. Oh no. was definitely around. Oh, here it is. Here we go. So this is just to run through some of the other ideas for videos while I remember, and kind of hopefully to whet your appetite on what's kind of possible. How do I open this? Oh. So this is one of the ideas. This is what I have here. Not sure if that's going to be, that will reverse properly in the feed. That is called a Crazy Fly 2, and it's made by a company called BitCraze. I'll open it up. Basically, it's a micro drone, like really small. Let me get my webcam on full. So there we go. So very small. It works via Bluetooth, and that's one of the projects which I want to kind of play with. I got it coming up to about a year ago, I think now. And it's been one of those things where you get a gadget, you do your initial play with it. I did some open source work on, or I started doing some open source work on the iOS app, which they have on their GitHub. I think I got maybe one or two things requested and committed into it, and I think some other people picked up various other parts of that. But I have some ideas to kind of basically one of the ideas is to build some sort of combined augmented reality app. So mixing an AR mobile app with a drone. The idea being that you could, in theory, draw the path in the app, and then that would basically lead a way for the drone to fly. So that's one of the ideas. That's number one up here. Nerf. Oh, I need to open a new tab in this window. Nerf is another one, which is this here. Which stands for Neural Radiance Fields. This is definitely a lot more on the academic side, but this looks crazy cool as a potential project coming up. So this is a paper which came out, I think, pretty recently. I think it was like the 1st of March, beginning of mid-March. I haven't read enough into it to pass any comments so far. I just know that it seems to have, it gives off a vibe of being very valuable. Yeah. Yeah, already slightly lost, but I would quite enjoy reading through the paper and seeing what's possible. I've seen already some critiques that it takes a very long time to process the inputs. So from what I understand is you can input, and this is my favourite little clip of it. This is composite, so I think what they've done is they're compositing the virtual object kind of into a world scene. So they've got this object captured, and then they're running this video and be able to mask it and include it behind the object, which is quite cool. And there's interactive 3D models on the website as well. So this is another one. So this is something where I probably would read the paper, possibly try and port it, or have some version of it kind of run maybe on iOS. I don't know feasibility wise how possible it is already. My best guess would be that this is going to be far too complicated to do. A lot of it seems to also be synthesized, which makes me wonder kind of if it does what I might think it does. So we'll see. That's another option. The whole point of this is that I can put these things up to be voted on, and depending on depending on what people vote, that can give me some guidance of what people enjoy or find interesting, or would like to see more of, or I can just do them. And if you like or find one of these videos interesting, then you can watch it, and if you don't, you don't have to. There's plenty of other people doing commentaries and YouTube channels and stuff around this. For me, this is a case that I can practice basically filming and being on camera and talking to camera and generally just making content and staying sane during this quarantine period. The final one on my list so far is Ray Tracer in a weekend. It doesn't need to be a weekend. Should have links for these. Ray Tracer in a weekend. In one weekend, that's what it's called. It's this PDF/course put together by Peter Shirley, and he's created 3 books which are all about ray tracing, which is a graphics related kind of project or technique. And they're free. They're free PDFs. You can just go and download one, and you can basically get started. It's in, I think there's a website as well, but it's written in C++. I've done, I think, over half of the first chapter, and if I was to stream it, I'd probably start again. There's a lot of early setup stuff, but pretty early on you can get some cool results of just like rendering gradients on screen, or rendering shapes and reflections, and getting some really like nice looking. If I skip ahead, or if I skip ahead to kind of even just getting the metals or dielectrics in, you end up with some pretty cool kind of looking images depending on how you set the resolution. So that could be a possible another project. But for today, I think I decided that I was gonna take a look at and start setting up my face touching project, or the lack of. To give a quick summary over the last video I filmed, this is a small macOS app which I started building to basically stop users from touching their face. The idea being that at least currently with the coronavirus, one of the recommendations by various governments has been to stop touching your face, because that seems to be the way which it spreads. So this is kind of a novel, kind of mostly for fun app. As I said before, this is not advice or anything medical related in that sense. It's just kind of an interesting thing. I think in some ways it's also good because, let's say, if you also have ever ran into the problem of picking your nose, or anything to do with touching your eyes or anything like that, this could be a good thing to do. And the gist of how it works, I can even actually, let's get it running while I do that. So I talked a bit last time about how I set up the data and began building a CoreML model. I think today my very first thing I need to do is just start filling in the issues and begin thinking about what the next thing to work on is. And I have some stashed code. I think that'll probably be enough for today, so there's nothing too exciting with the model happening today. But one thing at a time. Let me just make sure have everything open properly. Cool. Okay, so I can test this. And one thing which I said before last time is that my video, I'm going to take my video off from the main stream, just because it changes the resolution, because I'm requesting extremely low res camera in an attempt to basically make the app as efficient as possible. So what you'll see here is a picture of me through the webcam. Up at the top we have a motion detector indicator, which basically tells the system, or the system tells the indicator that I've moved, and it's based on a certain threshold. So the first check on the frame, so I'm basically requesting the frame at a specific rate, and then checking if there's a difference of if the 2 frames which I've pulled in within a time interval have changed much, and if they have changed, the motion detector goes through the motion detector, it stops detecting for motion, and it starts running a neural network using technology called CoreML. This is all based, and it's only a Mac app at the moment, with the model being built originally in PyTorch and then converted using the CoreML conversion tools. And the model is here, and it's called hand model. And the model takes an input image which is 224 by 224, so a square cropped image, and in this case it's taking a square cropped image from the center. and it's then converting that into a 112 by 112, so it's a half the resolution, and that's this one here. One thing I noticed last time is that noise, I don't think that noise comes through on the stream. I can't tell if it will today or not. Here's a good time to test. If I don't know if so there should be a noise coming through when a face is detected, but as you can see, that there is a mask of my hand, and currently there is a noise consistently playing. Because of the way I've got my streaming set up, I have a feeling it won't be playing the noise, but that's fine for the moment. You can see basically it's whenever it says face down here, that is a signal. I think I might make it flash is one option. I've also found that it's actually quite annoying having it ring the noise so much, that maybe I might also have a counter, and that's one of the issues I think I want to add, which I'll do in a second. I'm trying to think what I haven't explained. There's also a buzzer noise, which I don't think that's going to play either. But I guess I'll find out after the stream's over, or if there was anyone in chat. But okay, so first things first. So I use Tower, which is a Git tool. I don't always use it. I kind of swing between using a oh yeah, that makes sense. So I have some commits already on. Wow, that doesn't look right. First things first, let's get back to the project and let's start writing some issues, because that's kind of the most important thing, is to kind of have a plan of what needs to be finished and when, or at least a schedule for this. So we have one issue on there already. I think that's fine. It's a case we need to add documentation, so I think that's a very clear one. Another one which I was thinking is we need to have provide what they call releases. So that's a case of just building it, and then kind of there's a section over here which will say releases, and then people will be able to do a one-click and download without having to worry about anything else. My voice is slightly disappearing already. Let's grab some tea. Okay. What do I want to say? Oh, I can put my export from Xcode and upload as release. I guess that's kind of obvious, but it's better to get this stuff kind of written down, and so I have a clearer plan of what I'm going to be doing. We need a new issue. Add preference pane. I'm not sure if that's the best way to write an issue, but for the time being that'd be okay. And I want to allow the user to change the parameters of motion detection and what they call frame rates and thresholds. Okay. Don't know what else I need. That's probably the main things. The first thing I probably should do is at least explain it, because I have a feeling that people would land on this page and see this README and just be like, it says what it is up here, but there's no information available at all in the main section. So I'll do this. So I'll pull the latest version and I will open the README, I think. Projects, and then I put it in okay, so we've got the README. Okay, what do we need to know? What's the key things that a user would need to know about this application? Oh, I should also explain. This app I'm using here is an app called Macdown, which the icon looks like this one, and it's a free. I think it's a free and possibly open source Markdown editor, and it's really useful because it allows you to preview things kind of on the opposite side. So you have a writing area and then a preview area, and it's been kind of my go-to Markdown editor. I'm just trying to think what information I need to provide users. I guess there's some information about how it's implemented, which is probably interesting but not that useful. Ideally, I'll want a screenshot in it eventually, but that's not an immediate problem. So let's copy the little blurb line. So we've got start. Oh. I need like a template. I feel like there are sometimes README templates. How to make a good README. Oh yeah, information usage, release history. Ooh, is this a template I can use? Yeah, okay. I might steal a bit of this. Can I see the raw? Okay, so that's the tagline. So we got that as a line there. Sections. We need like installation. I definitely want a section on releases. Oh. I quite like the idea of the meta section. Do that. Under the MIT license. So yeah, I put it under an MIT license. The idea, hopefully, being that it's auditable. So, which means that given that anyone, so the worry with some of the other implementations and other versions of, I should make this bigger, the other versions of this face touching app was that people, a lot of them are browser based, meaning that the data in theory could go anywhere. Still, I guess the risk could be that at least the person building it themselves and being able to look for all the code themselves allows them to have some peace of mind that it's being safely, the flow of data is being safely controlled. I guess. Okay, so we'll check that in there. I'm sure I should call it contributors or I think it's so excessive. I just don't think any of that's really needed. I'm trying to think what I've written on other repos I've used or maintained in the past. These are all like really old projects. Set up, running. I just hope you find it useful, Matt. Yeah, that could work. It's kind of simple, but it'll do the job. Installation. Yeah, I guess I could have an installation setup. I just put releases under there, I think. This application, oh, I should just use the name, I guess. Key things, it's a native macOS application using the webcam to detect user touching their face. The app uses vision and a custom CoreML model to detect face touching. I don't know what the cool. There's always a nice. People have a really nice kind of message of like kind of cool to contribute kind of type things. Installation. Open and run the. I could. There is kind of another section actually. Files. To key folder. Let me think. Let me just have a quick look. Do I have the folder open? Hand model contains all the code required to build the dataset, convert, build the dataset, run the model and convert to CoreML. Releases maybe goes there. Usage. Project can be found in the Stop Touching Your Face folder. Tick. Cool. This is gonna make a really interesting stream. Open the project found in Stop Touching Your Face folder. The project was built using Xcode 11.3. I think that's correct. 11.31, I think, but oh no, that's wrong. Settings 11.3. I think it's 11.31. Okay. Wow, I've been live for 41 minutes. Wow, that's... Oh, I've only been recording 35, but okay, that's quite a long time. I'm just worried that this is kind of a boring part which I could do in another time and do more coding, but equally this needs to be done to set up the project. I think at the moment, because this is so early on in my kind of streaming, this is kind of still practice in my mind. So if you do manage to find this and watch this, then you're a true subscriber. I should put my webcam back up as well. Oh, there we go. What did I get to? Okay, so Stop Touching Your Face is a native macOS application using the webcam to detect the user touching their face and play a deterrent. Play an alert. The app uses, I'll probably put on a new line. The app uses Apple's vision and a custom CoreML model to detect face touching. I'll just say vision, people know what it is. Use vision for motion detection and a custom CoreML model to detect face touching. Open the project found in Stop Touching Your Face folder. The project was built using Xcode 11.3. Nothing else is required. I think that's as simple as it is. There's no... There we go. That's it. There's nothing beyond obviously changing your signing information. I think that's everything you need. I think we request camera permission. I think that's it. project is built in Xcode 11.3 on whatever Swift version that is. No additional dependencies required to run. Usage. /count face. Yes, files. I mean, this is quite rough, but I'm just kind of trying to get it down so we've got something. Another issue I've suddenly thought of. Clear some of these. I would love a counter. I think for me, the way I use my own application is passively. What's happened to this? Oh, there we go. Add account. Add a counter to track the make it simple. Face touching counter. Be nice. Oh no, a passive mode for tracking the number times the user touches the face per day or per hour. Could be an interesting statistic and tool for mindfulness. As I said before, I think this tool makes a lot more sense being a passive kind of tool. The idea being that you kind of, or a tool which you run, you track how many times you touch your face in a day, and you begin to try and be a bit more mindful of the fact that you are touching your face. I guess I haven't really thought this through. I feel like this project is kind of a bit silly and very unnecessary in terms of if you want to stop touching your face. I guess it's more drawing you to it. I think it's something like a bit like, say, screen time, where it's the idea of you could just stop going on YouTube, in theory, depending on willpower or kind of what you have to do, I guess. But having a clear statistic of, oh, this week you spent 4 hours on YouTube or more, I feel like that's kind of the type of thing, like kind of that passive kind of detection thing. And for me, a lot of this is not actually the outcome of the project. It's, for me, just playing around with machine learning and vision tools to kind of learn kind of more about them. So, hopping between these things. So we've got a little intro. We've got kind of tagline. Do I still have that pasteable? No. Tagline. Some a bit more like kind of detail. I'll probably join those now. Most section, kind of detail on kind of how it works. Oh yeah, I should put the files at the top of that section because then it might be a bit clearer. Or even there, because it's kind of, and then The project was built using Xcode 11. No additional dependencies required to run. I feel like the usage section is really not needed. I don't like the idea of calling it meta. Might even remove my details as well. Or even actually could put that there. Just grab that to a clipboard just in case I need it later. I might even get rid of the contribute section. It's kind of obvious, you can contribute if you want. Yeah, I think that's kind of clear enough. It's simple, I guess. Where's, yeah. Oh, this name is so long. README.md. Ugh, yeah. Okay. Gives me at least something. That's kind of, yeah, basic, I guess. Let's go back to the project and I can begin to show you what the next part I've been working on is. I didn't mean to shut that window. Oh, the sun is blasting me in the eyes. I'm just going to close the blinds. Too dark. Oh. Okay. So, let's apply the stash. This could cause some problems. What was that? Add resizing. Ooh. Interesting. I think it was there. Apply stash. Yeah. I think this is before I added git ignore. Let's see. I worked on this a while ago. When was this? I was working on this around the 20th, so coming up to a month ago. Makes it a lot harder to. There's some pretty nasty code in here. Let's see. Okay, let's run it and see what happens. I had a feeling it may have broken it and stopped running. If it is the case, then I may well stop the stream and this may be the end. But I can show you at least the preference panel which I started building. And that to me looks like it hasn't stopped working. Big question is why. The preference pane is not quite fixed at the moment, but I have parameters for all of the key things which this system does, which will be hard to show without what it could be. It could be the fact I had changed some of the motion settings. So we now rerun. Because if I overwrite parameters, like, I can't think of a good example what parameter, but let's say most, there we go, okay, we're back on. So, I can walk through roughly what the parameters do, and then I might end the stream, because this has gone on, coming up to an hour. I'm not sure if this project, or this, I think I need to pick interesting things to do. Me doing a README is probably not going to be a very interesting video. So I might put a disclaimer at the beginning, but that's fine. So, how does this work? So we have a slow frame rate and a fast frame rate. The slow frame rate is the rate at which it hits the motion detector, allowing me to basically not test it too much. So I think the video feed here, plus the fact we're streaming, I'm using 15 or 20% of my CPU on streaming, I think. That's what OBS is telling me. I've also got some stats which I've added and started printing up here. It looks a lot better in dark mode. I could even force it to dark mode to maybe make it look a bit better. Oh, the noise played there. I heard the noise play. One of my friends switched out the sound from, I'm not sure if this will play on the feed either. It will be quite loud if it does, so this is just a quick warning, so check your headphone volume. Yeah, that came out for me, but it's basically the noise from one of the Silicon Valley episodes, where I think Guilfoyle is playing with Bitcoin or something silly, but it's an apt noise. It's quite jump scary, and it should deter you from touching your face. There is definitely a playing issue though, and obviously there's also the tea problem I mentioned yesterday. Of as soon as you put your face in frame for a cup of tea, it's going to trigger as well, which is not ideal. I don't know if there's a way around that. That should trigger. It does trigger over here, but the sound clip is being like paused and played at the same time. I will have to investigate how I output the audio from this application into the main feed, if it's included or not. I think it should be, but I'll have to do some more checking. Anyway, let's get back to the key, what I'm trying to kind of walk through now. So, two things. We have a slow frame rate and a fast frame rate. The slow frame rate is when it hits the... I can walk through this in code as well, actually, which might make sense. And maybe that will be the end of this episode, and then next episode I'll start actually working on this. Or I might pick something different, depending on how I feel. So, when motion is being detected, you can see here a distance value being printed. That is happening 5 frames per second. Or whatever this number is set to, this is the slow frame rate. When it then gets through the motion detector and it starts running the neural network, it runs at a faster frame rate, allowing you to have that kind of nice, kind of clearer motion. I have a feeling that it probably won't actually run at 15 frames per second, because depending on the computer it's running on and how it works. But if it can run it that fast, then it will. I need to do some that's another issue. That is one of the things I was thinking. I need to validate the model. Validate the hand model. and I'll just call it that for the moment. I'll add some extra details that should add. Oh, can I not edit the description? Oh, that's here. Validate the accuracy of the hand model using the validation set from hands over face dataset. Hopefully that makes enough sense. There's the dataset which I built everything off has a validation set, which means that there is a way for me to validate and check the quality of how accurately it is validating the data. It's not the most important thing. Well, no, it is. I need to make sure the model. Let me hop back. I need to make sure the model that the model which runs in this is running accurately to what I expect it to. In terms of, I guess, the reason I said I'm not so worried is the fact that it very much detects a hand in the scene. And the mask from a visual perspective in terms of me seeing it is good, but I would like to have a valid number, or an intersection of union is normally the method for detecting and tracking what that means. Kind of accuracy of how much of the expected labels are in the right places from the output of my model which I've created. So basically we take a raw input data, which I kind of mentioned a bit in the previous video, and then kind of overlap them and see where they line up and check that they are basically doing both correctly detecting where a hand should be and correctly detecting where a hand should not be. So you're not getting false negatives as well. Anyway, so we have a slow frame rate, a fast frame rate, a motion cool off, a hand cool off, and these are all just things I've kind of made up as I kind of built this. It seems to make sense. I think a lot of this could all, and this might be a route of investigation, something like Viola Jones face detector. Viola Jones detector. I'll get the Wikipedia article up. Something like this might work equally as well, in terms of this is basically kind of the technology you'll see in stuff. It's more classical in terms of this is relatively old in terms of computer vision and cutting edge computer vision, but it's very fast. It's what I think a lot of autofocus and original cameras use this technology. I do wonder if it would just be simpler to have a generic face detector, and when it stops detecting a face, the problem you'd need to run a significant, or you run the difference, and then instead of running a whole neural network, you could just run run a face detector. If the bounding box disappears, played the audio again. If the bounding box disappears or is obscured by something, then check it. So that's another option, and that probably will run a bit faster. That's one of the only big worries, is that this just isn't efficient enough. It's a cool idea because we're using machine learning, and we're using CoreML, and we're using vision, like all the cool kind of fun new technologies are great. But at the end of the day, this might be a simpler way to do that. For the time being, I like this approach just because it allows me to try out new things and use kind of knowledge from segmentation and all these kind of different tools together. So we'll stick with it, but that might be something to investigate later down the line. And I don't know too much about the Viola Jones algorithm, so it might be something worth looking at. So we have a slow frame rate and a fast frame rate. We bump up to the fast frame rate once the motion detection. So when this green light is green, it will go to the higher. It will attempt to reach the higher frame rate, or whatever frame rate is the maximum frame rate it can reach if it's below 15, and otherwise it will sit below or around 5. It won't always be exactly the same because it's running based off a AV capture loop, which I think I'm doing some timing. So I have some timing code in here as well. Where am I? Oh, AV capture output over here. So this method is a callback, which basically provides you a sample buffer whenever it has one, based on however you've set up your AV Foundation session. And I'm manually doing some maths to check kind of what the frame rate is, and then given in the right situations, dropping or stopping the loop from kind of continuing or from following on. So I might let it or skip past in one case, let it do the motion detection, and if it doesn't find any changes, just discard it and stop running. Or in the case where it has previously detected motion, it will skip doing the motion detection and go straight onto the neural network. As you can see here, I've actually written in what's happening. So in the red mode, like now, I'm not moving at all. You can see that at the moment we're tracking the distance and we're getting those updates at 5 frames per second, and we're skipping the hand detect. If I move now, this goes green. We're now skipping the motion detection, and we're being provided a certain amount, and as soon as it reaches the threshold, it will just say it's reached the threshold. It actually does a counting method in a loop where as soon as it's found enough pixels to validate it matching the threshold, it stops running that and it gets out of that loop to avoid doing any extra processing. So the motion cool off is once you've detected motion, so that goes green, you wait 3 seconds, and it then resets back to being, it's basically how long does it take. So if we bump, actually I think this should work. So if I now move, that should wait 5 whole seconds before it then goes back. So I can actually play around with this now. This is all now rigged up to kind of hopefully to work. So one option is you could just say the motion call off is 0. So it's always skipping the motion detection. So, oh no, what does that mean? Oh, it means, yeah, after it's finished doing a motion detection loop, it will then stop. I need to sneeze. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll put these. I can just use the reset button. It's good I made that. So now, that's the motion call off. The hand call off is how long that once it's detected a hand, it then waits before. What does that mean? Oh, yeah, I think they both kind of do the same thing. So I think the hand call off basically adds on time for the motion detect to be disabled. So it waits another. Once it's detected a hand, I think it gives it an extra 5 seconds to then keep holding that open, so you keep skipping the motion detection, because once let's say if in one frame it detects a part of a hand down here, you wanna then keep it open enough that by the time it reaches the face, then it detects it. I'll have a look in code and we can iron out the details. We have a sensitivity for the motion detection, and that is using image distance. So I'll show you. Let's just go and see how the motion detection works first. So it's all in this big loop, all in this big function actually. So we get a pixel buffer. We check last movement. I'm not sure quite what it's doing. Start feature. This is how we basically use this function, which is the nGenerate image feature. It's basically a method which can be used to calculate the distance between two images, compute distance, and that's the distance between the previous image and this next one. So between the 2 frames we've captured, however many seconds apart they are, depending on the frame rate, so between a fifth of a second apart, that's what we're looking for, a certain amount of motion to then trigger and be above a threshold. So we compute this distance, it places it into this parameter, it's addressing it there, which is an old I think is a relatively old style way, old API way of doing things. Yeah, it's an unmutable pointer float. Then check the distance here, and if it's below the threshold, we basically want to break out of the loop. And when we break out of the loop, we set when the last frame was produced, and that's for checking the frame rate. We set the frame rate to the slow frame rate because it's in the slower section of this kind of cycle, and then we update kind of the labels asynchronously because that's on the, you don't want to be directly interacting with the main thread. And it returns, which means that stops right there. If distance is greater, it will keep running. We'll prepare the audio, so we basically line up the player, we don't play anything yet. We set the frame rate to the fast frame rate, so that means that we'll start receiving and getting more entrances to this loop from this point on, and we update the motion detection indicator, just to basically make it green to show that we've seen motion. So that's what up here. So that's that going green there is it hitting this line of code here, and then this is where we begin our image request handler and load our model. Which, thinking about it, that seems like it's loading a new model every single time it runs that loop, because this is a local variable. Instantly makes me wonder if that should be pulled out, and we should, yeah. I'm not sure. Ooh. I'll have to have a think about that, but yeah, that might be a point where I can pull that out, and that might make it quicker. We perform a prediction on the image. We're center cropping the image. We're from the request. We're doing a center crop. This is just a local function which I wrote to count. Oh no, to access pixels from a pixel buffer. This isn't the nicest code. Lock the base address. You basically don't want to be fiddling with the pixels. I think it gets upset if you fiddle with pixels outside of this section. I can't remember. There's a percentage for the threshold, but I wrote it like this. Oh, yeah, sorry, the hand coverage threshold is a percentage of the frame covered by the hand. 255 is the top value of a pixel, between 0 and 255, and it's 112 by 112. The idea being that if you were to sum all the pixels up in terms of intensity, that's the threshold I would want to reach of full white pixels for everything would be 100%. But if you were to have alpha pixels, which I don't think in this model you can, because on the edges I think it is just a mask. It is just a 0 or a 1 kind of black or white pixel value mask. Then this would be able to support that. Basically, this just does a sum, and an interesting idea which I thought of, which probably isn't that novel, but the idea that it starts its search. Did it again? From the bottom of the mask. So, meaning that instead of going top down, because your hand will come from the bottom, you basically want to catch the point at which it's tracing its way basically up, and because your hand's going to be at the bottom, it will cover the bottom first, and it will count quicker, and it won't have to keep looping through and accessing lots of parts of this pixel buffer. I think the quickest way, you could even center it more, and there's probably smarter things you could do. But I thought this was a reasonably quick way to do that. And as soon as it reaches the sum, it breaks out of the loop, and otherwise it would have to search through the whole thing. So that's not ideal. There probably is a point which I could stop it when it's reached the point where it can no longer reach the sum. So when it's impossible for it to reach the sum, it could also break out of the loop. Again, these are optimizations which I don't think I need at the moment. There's probably more fundamental things which are needed. If face touched, which is set in this basically, if it reaches the threshold, it plays the audio, it sets the motion, the last movement, to a timestamp for this frame rate and tracking, and it adds onto that the cool off time. And if the face wasn't touched, it stops the audio. What's the percentage? Oh, and it prints the coverage of the hand on the frame. And then there's more rendering related stuff there. Yeah, cool. So I think that's the gist of kind of how it's working at the moment. So that means you could bump up the detection threshold, meaning that it's still going to trigger pretty easily. That was 4%. So if I put it 100%, I should expect. Okay, that's not working. So that's interesting. So that might be something I need to go back and have a look at. Let me see what percentage that says. It says threshold reached in the label. So maybe there's. Yeah, I'll look into that maybe. But that's kind of that's the gist of how it works. Cool. Let me stop this. So for the preference panel, the way I've set it up is, that's not the preference panel. This is just a preferences struct. It's a bit extra to do it like this. I basically have it so that I have some parameters which can be globally set from a preference object. So you can basically have all your preferences in one place, including resetting and registering. So for example, in the app delegate, in the view controller, I search for preferences. Preferences are initialized as a parameter of the view controller, and then the first thing I do is call register defaults. So that's if there's no parameters set for it, again sets those defaults. And then the actual preferences view, I think, is this one. It's not the prettiest code. This is where, if you're really fussy about code, you should probably look away, because this is this could be much neater, especially because if you look at the way it's set up over here, I need access to all of the different parts of it. I guess these components could be subclassed, and so could these actually. So that's probably the next step. But for the time being, just to kind of get something going, I've added them all as separate components, just because I guess I don't know how reusable they'll be, and I know that this is much quicker to kind of get everything in one place and set up first before then adding like separating parts and messing around with it. And it's still not crazy. It's 185 lines of code. There's definitely a lot of repeated components here, but there's bits which do vary. So there's a lot of parameters which would be needed. And the problem is a lot of the parts happen in different places. There's definitely a lot of setup for the controllers of kind of the basic stuff they need. Some of this could be done in what's it called, in the storyboard. But yeah, maybe it could actually. I don't think I have an excuse really. Senders. I think some of the parameters have floats and some are doubles, which causes, there's definitely some casting issues in terms of writing it to the preferences. But definitely subclassing those could be something I could do in the future. I don't know what I'm missing then at the moment. What's kind of keeping this from being shipped? This didn't seem to affect anything, so that would be something to look into in terms of just catching it. Where's that function at the bottom? Catching it somewhere in this loop and just kind of querying what that parameter is. So I can go preferences dot what was it? Threshold. Hand detection threshold. Coverage threshold. 0.7. So it's definitely writing to it, that's not a problem. So let's skip past that. It's another parameter, I don't know what that's, I don't need these. We've got a lot of breakpoints, it seems. Oh no, that is the one I wanted. Let's move, and then it should catch it. So I can just check what the threshold is. Which I think makes sense. And then from each pixel, and then adding it into the sum. And if the sum is greater than that threshold, it will trigger. Be interesting to see what these values come out as. Can bring that in front. Where's my window? Oh, here. Okay, that triggered. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. Okay. This might be something I can keep going with myself, just because I am worried that this could be very, very boring. And I think today's episode has taught me that I need to pick topics that are a bit more interesting. Like well, I guess I'll find out. But I think very few people want to watch. Oh, interesting. It didn't trigger the. It said hand detected. I don't think very many people really want to watch me write a README, or debug some obscure bug or something which I've kind of missed. So I'll have a think about this, because it's definitely. Ooh. Oh, I've lost my breakpoint. That could be why it's not triggering the breakpoint. Be interesting to compare. Like, can I cover? At what point? So this is set at 70% coverage, so I think a whole hand, it shouldn't trigger based on that. If I go for maybe 2 hands, and 2 hands really close up, at some point it should trigger that breakpoint. That's interesting. Okay, maybe 70% is just too much. So if I pull that down to, let's say, 48, bring that back up. Interesting. Maybe, yeah. I guess if I just don't trigger the face every time, it'll print the percentage, so I can at least then see what the sum is. Oh, and if I stop it from breaking at all, so if I get rid of this little section here, that will mean, and get rid of the breakpoint. So face touch will never be triggered, meaning that it will trigger the motion detection, but it will keep running, and I'll be able to see the percentage in my label. So this loop here will break and fall through. So this will be always false, I think, meaning that the audio is not in play. But I'll get the percentage written out to the label, so we'll be able to get a gauge of what that's actually doing. Oh, that's weird. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, so we put a hand up. Ah, there we go, that's better. Can you, hopefully people can see that. If I can I switch into night mode? Oh no, that's night shift, I don't want that. I want dark mode. Because I think the labels flip colour. Do they flip colour? Oh, this could make my computer unhappy. There we go. I don't know why it does that. I'm not sure how readable that'll be now. I'm not sure if there's a better or more preferred option for streaming when you color-wise, in terms of just always stream in dark mode, maybe. But I'll find that out. Anyway, to validate this, we can see that's probably why. Also, if I hold my hand still enough, even if there is a hand in the scene, which could be a flaw in my logic possibly, even if there is a hand in the scene, and I wait for the motion detection to stop, I can now, in theory, move it very slightly and it won't trigger the motion detection again, which is indicated by the indicator up in the top corner over here. So when I have both my hands there, right in front of my face, that's only just about getting about 50% coverage of that scene down below. I think it'd be very hard actually to try and, I wonder how I can do it. I wonder if it's actually possible. This is, maybe if I just put my hands like there, yeah, I think it'd be very hard to actually trigger 70%, so that's why it didn't trigger. But it is definitely writing it, and that makes a lot more sense. So there we go. I've solved at least one problem. So I think this is probably good enough to be committed back. I won't commit it back straight away, just because I'll check through, and so normally when I commit stuff back, I'll go per file and just make sure that I've not missed anything. And I feel like that can easily be done off air. One thing which I've noticed, and I can explain on these, is that it wants to commit all of these files. I believe somewhere I added a git ignore when I added some of the stuff with the face model, so they should hopefully be ignored somewhere. I guess I can check on my git ignore now. So yes, so they should be ignored. So both the XML files that's why they're not being ignored. This allows the setup of the project. The idea being that you basically, to get the hand model working, I was wondering why there were so many extra files in the stash when I applied it. These files shouldn't be here. These are all extra files. So the idea being that you download the dataset and then you run this script, which just is lazy, pretty lazy, but basically just recursively copies over all of the files into the folders for the playground to do the processing. And then what do you do? And then run the playground, and then you can then copy out the output files from basically the destination they end up at, which is found in the playground. I walked through that a bit the last time I did a video. And then, finally, you can convert them into ppm, and then that can be used to train the model. But that's why there's a ton of files there. So, let me just quickly get my camera kind of back at a reasonable resolution. This is, I have to work out a way if I can restore, there we go, that's better. Use OBS to show my webcam. Okay, cool. So, in summary, today, what have we done? I've waffled quite a bit about all the projects which I might potentially do at the beginning, including some stuff possibly with the drone, which I mentioned. There's some papers potentially I could do a stream about, or there's also the ray tracer project, which I've previously started building but would definitely like to build again and build it on stream, because I think that'd be interesting and it gives me a good excuse to use more C++, which I've used for quite a while and I quite enjoy. I think I might be the only one, or one of the few, but I really enjoy C++. Then we did some stuff with the README. I kind of hacked together. We did a load of issue related stuff actually. We put a really quick kind of initial something in the README so people who find it aren't completely confused of how it works. And then we added a few issues to the project, and then I gave a run through of kind of some of the changes which I'll be adding soon, and stuff to do with preferences. So we've kind of been working on this one here, which I can assign to myself because I'm the only one working on this. So I think that's going to be it for today. We'll have to have been on for a whole hour and a half. If you've watched any part of this, I would be very impressed. I think that I'll definitely have a think of what to stream going forward. I'm not sure if writing a README was the best idea. Hopefully I've kept in a positive enough mood, given that I spent like hours this morning trying to set up OBS and get the streams working. So it's a step in the right direction. So I think that's probably going to be it for now. I'll probably leave it there, and hopefully be back at some point later in the week, maybe the weekend, or otherwise next week. So that's everything from me. I'll see you hopefully in the next one. Bye.
Facing the dead of night by my side, but I'm still hesitating, 'cause there is this distance, and we both feel it through the dark in our hearts. Gotta keep from breaking.